Okay, so let's get started on the Andy Wallance bass technique. So here I just have a regular bass DI loaded. This was just recorded straight into an Apogee audio interface. So let's play with it. It's already set where it needs to be to a VU meter. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go and grab a preamp. I love the API 3214 on bass. So I'm just going to find the drive that I like, go up a bit too much, and then come back and find out where it's sexy. And it gets sexy right about there. Yeah, that's nice. All right. So next, I want to pretend that I'm going into the SSL console. So I need to pull up the line. And it's always nice to drive this one just a little bit. Now, unlike using a regular plugin, we're actually getting this kind of analog saturation from preamp and console. Andy Wallance does this stuff in his console, and he uses SSL. So we want to try for that. Now let's go ahead and add some compression, because these AnalogX compressors, this is the best compression I've ever heard in the box. And I love these Uri 1176s that Mike made. Yeah, that sounds nice. So that's like a great starting point for our bass. But of course, for the Andy Wallance mix trick, we need to have a bass DI and a bass amp. So I'm going to get this bounced out. The reason I bounce out from Logic rather than bouncing down is because I like to bounce out at 32-bit. And if you bounce down in Logic, it becomes 24-bit, and I haven't been able to find any way to make it a bounce down of 32-bit. So I bounce out, so I keep 32-bit, because if you go from 32-bit to 24-bit, you end up with truncation distortion, which I don't like. Maybe you can't hear it on one thing, but over an entire project, it stacks up. So I just bounce out. And it's also a great way of archival. So you see that I write it out, what I've done, so that if I ever need to go back and recreate it, I can. And in a typical project, I bounce down every single thing that I do with AnalogX. So I'll have just the preamp, then the preamp and the console, then the preamp, the console, and the tracking compressor. And so if I ever want to go change anything, or I get some new pack that's amazing, and I'm like, oh, wow, I have to replace something with that, then it's easy enough to do. Okay, so let's pull this back in. Let's go get rid of the original and save CPU. All right, cool. So now we need to go get ourselves an amp. So one thing that's really cool to know is that the guy who is coding Genesis was a coder for this plugin, and this thing sounds amazing. So I love this preset, and I like to just turn off these things, and then booyah, that's nice. So then we just need to come in and level it back down. Nice and sexy amp sound. We can sweeten it a bit. I love this thing by Bogren Digital. Need to buy it, but luckily they give you a 1-minute thing, and this works for me. You can hear what it does. I'll A/B it. All right, so let's bounce this out now. All right, and let's pull that in, and let's take all this stuff off of here so that we have something to combine with. So we have our DI. So now let's work on our amp sound a little bit. So, you know, when you record an amp, you have all kinds of options. So again, I'm going to use this API. Oop, wrong one. Let's go back. So I'm going to use the API 3214. Love this on bass. Yeah, that's nice. And then again, SSL console, because of course Andy Wallance would have both of these on channels in the SSL, then he would bus them together and then send them out. So for us to really recreate the Andy Wallance bass sound, we need to have both of our elements with the SSL line amplifier, which is the sound of the input of the console. All right, let's see if we can get away with adding some compression on here. No, I don't think I'm feeling it. Let's leave it off. Okay, so now let's bounce this out. So we have the amp with the preamp and the line. And we also have a nice archive of everything we've been doing. All right, it's finished. Let's bring it in. All right, delete the old one, save ourselves some CPU. And let's go ahead and group these together and let's work on them. So one of the things that we need to do is we need to phase align them. So even though we're using an amp model, I just find that the phase aligning just works really nicely. So since these are the only things here, we go and click Analyze. All right, and I like to use the spectral phase compensation on the bass. There we go. That sounds really nice. So now we can use Mix Monolith to really exactly get these balanced how we like. This is one of the great things about Mix Monolith. It makes this so simple. So we're just going to analyze both at negative 30 LUFS, and then we can figure out how many level planes down we want that DI. Going to play this out to the end just to make sure that we have the full spectrum for the entire thing. Last note ring. Boom. Okay, mix it. Okay, so now we want to figure out how much we want this DI down. It sounds like 5. Usually I'm at 5 down. There we go. So we got that nice amp character, and we have the actual bass from the DI coming through. So now we're going to work on these more. So let's go ahead and level these to 0 with VU. And yeah, we'll use the gain plugin. Looks like 3. All right, drop it in, take it up 3. There we go, hitting 0. Okay, so now that we have both elements, it is time to do the actual Andy Wallance mix trick. So that is going to be the low band of a 1073 maxed. So Mike was nice enough to make this profile, and then Stu decided he would make it, and so there's a whole pack now, and it's amazing. So too much on the drive, so we need to back that down. There we go, that's nice. Okay, so now that's loud. We're going to have to pull that back down, but we have what we're looking for. All right, 12.7. All right, now, because it's an Andy Wallance thing, there would be an SSL console involved. So after you send it to an outboard gear, you're then going to want to come back in. So he's coming back into the SSL. So again, we're going to grab the SSL line and turn it on. Yep, that's nice. All right, sounding good. So let's go ahead and bounce that out. That's our bass group. So we've emulated the console, we've emulated the 1073. We are doing pretty good. We have a DI, we have an amp, they're grouped. And it sounds good. And already, because of that saturation character coming from the line, and what AnalogX does being the best sounding analog stuff in the box, I mean, already this is much cooler than what you could get with regular plugins, or warmer, or however you want to describe it. But oh yeah, I like that sound. Okay, so now let's use Mix Monolith and let's get this thing leveled out. So again, just because I want the level to really be the level, I'm going to play it all the way till the end. All right. Okay, so let's go for this next thing. So we're going to need to run into our channel compressor. So I like this preset. So this is the channel compressor from the console. So what we want to do is we want to EQ into this compressor. So we're going to set the compressor first and then EQ into it. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, so metric halo channel strip. You know what? Actually, let's go and do the Ceilings of Sound Pro. So let's just give a nice, more clean, more correct without changing the character equalization. So let's figure out what the slope for this is. Not quite it. Oop, wrong way. Okay, there we go. That looks like the slope. So let's freeze the waveform, go to the EQ, and match up all the bumps that want to be on the line to the line. Go back. Yeah, it just tightens it up a bit, makes it nice. I mean, it's already by default a very, very good sound, so it doesn't require much correction. So now let's give this some top end bite. I like that. All right, so let's level that out. And let's go up to 25. 30 is a bit quiet. I mean, when it's in solo. And again, we'll play it all the way to the end. Let that note ring out. And voila, we can mix it. All right, that is sounding good. I need to bump the level in the headphones a little bit. All right, so now the next part of the Andy Wallance bass trick is that we need to add the chorus. So I'm going to create a send here, and I'm going to send this full on out to here. And now what we can do is we can use a free plugin, because Andy Wallance would send this signal out to a hardware box and then back into the console. So With this symphonic mode, this is emulating the actual piece of outboard that he would use. I'm not going to play with the settings. I'm just going to leave them there at this like default starting point. So now I'm going to learn this chorus, and we're going to figure out how many level planes down we want it, because it's just an effect. So we don't need to blow everyone away with it like it is now, as cool as that sounds. So we're just going to analyze it and then drop it. All right. Now let's try all the way down. Too much. There we go. That's nice. Okay, so now we can take this even further. So let's take both of these and put them into a bus, and we're going to call that bus the bass bus. And let's go ahead and throw a mix monolith on there so that we can take the two signals together and get them balanced. And again, we'll go for 25. You know, I just realized, so if the outboard box is going to come back into the console, it's going to go through a line amplifier. So let's take that chorus and let's load up an SSL line amp. So we'll throw that on the chorus, see if any drive sounds nice. No, not feeling it. Okay, so let's make sure that we have this bass chorus correct in its level plane. Out the bus. So already we've done technically what you could do with plugins, and then we've gone beyond it and done what you can't do with plugins. I mean, good luck finding this stuff in algo world that sounds good, whereas here it just sounds so near to analog, it's amazing. So let's go ahead and use ceilings of sound here and just try to get, you know, the nicest, sexiest sound itself without changing its character that we can. So freeze that, go to the EQ, pull stuff up to the line. Makes it sound nice and awesome. Now, let's go ahead and do something really cool. So, if we were going to be doing this on an SSL console, we'd have the sound of the busing. So, let's go here and grab the sound of an SSL J console through the SSL Sigma. That's nice. Let's find the magic drive spot. Right there. So we have this really authentic, just SSL-ness going on. So let's level that out. And mix it. And there we go. We have big, sexy bass. It's got analog saturation, harmonics. We have managed to use AnalogX stuff to really get this authentic tone of bass DI, bass amplifier, analog preamps, the analog console, the 1073 with the maxed low band. It's awesome.